So I believe that if we rethink the way that we design and manage our cities, we can address many of the challenges that we have. So within the next 50 years, about 2/3 of the world's population will live in cities. This shift is due to a search for better economic opportunities and also from forced migration due to the degradation of rural or agricultural areas. And so even today, cities are responsible for about 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. And further aggravating this problem is the fact that most of this urban growth will take place in the global south. So this means that cities without proper access to resources and infrastructure will be receiving an enormous influx of people. So this is why it's very important that we learn how to keep the best aspects of cities while we minimize the ones that are negative, that can be associated with them. And so for this, many researchers and policymakers are using different types of information, such as government census, satellite data, telecom data, all sorts of information, to build models that can help us to understand the implications of urbanization. And so while we've gotten very far with these models, it's also true that some of these information sources have some limitations. So for example, census data is very good. It's open, quite easy to access, but sometimes lacks spatial and temporal granularity. Another example is telecom data, which can be used to better model large-scale mobility patterns in cities. But sometimes it's very hard to access because it's private. And even if you do have access, you'll find it very hard to model very fine-grained details about human behavior. For example, the details that happen at the urban block scale, in a building, homes, or offices. And so for the past few years here at MIT as a graduate student, I've been building new technologies, mainly sensors and algorithms, that are specifically designed to capture more fine-grained details about urban complexity. So to show you a little bit about how these devices look like and how I create them, I'm going to take you to Lomas del Centinela, Mexico. And so this is an ongoing project currently developing. And so we're working in an informal settlement called Lomas del Centinela. Informal settlements are areas in a city that tend to lack typical access to infrastructure of electricity, water, or even food systems. So when we started engaging with this community, we quickly realized that water was a key priority for them. And so just to show you a little bit about how water is sourced and the life of water within the community, it tends to look something like this. So for example, when they get the water, they source it from different sources. So for example, capturing it from the rain, sometimes having it delivered through trucks, or sometimes even connecting to formal infrastructure that they can find around their houses. Once they get the water, they store it within these types of containers. So they tend to be different sizes, different shapes, different materials, and they tend to be spread out around the house, so they're sort of hard to access. And it's very hard to know how much water you have at any given point in time. And lastly, since there's no formal piping infrastructure, all of the usage is carried out through buckets within the house. So after we did some interviews and some co-development processes, we were able to come up with a sensor system that is low cost, low power, and that can help to better manage water within these households. So the sensor system is very simple. The sensors are extremely simple. And so they have 3 different types of sensors: quality, quantity, and usage. Quality is measured or estimated by measuring conductivity of water within the tanks. Quantity is estimated by measuring the distance between a tank lid and a water line. And then usage is estimated by detecting any time that a bucket gets flipped. And so we install these sensors in a way that is minimally invasive to the activities of the community. And also they're designed in a way that they can adapt to the infrastructure as opposed to adapting the infrastructure to the system. So here you see the water quality sensor floating. the quantity sensor is glued on top of the tank's lid. And here is the bucket sensor just glued on the side of the bucket. And so each bucket can correspond to a different location in the house. So for example, we have kitchen buckets, restroom buckets, or laundry buckets. And so installing these sensors and starting to gather this information is only the first step. It might be even the easiest step. So we're interested in understanding ways where we can go from just insights or data to actual actions that can benefit the community. So to do so, we're experimenting with two approaches. The first one is through bottom-up behavioral transformation or behavioral change. So for example, we're developing different interfaces, just your regular data dashboards, but we're also experimenting with virtual pets, which are actually one of the fan favorites. And so these interfaces help the community members digest information in a way that they can actually change behaviors to better manage their own water. So for example, if the system detects that there's bad quality in one of the tanks, it can suggest for this water to be used for non-sanitary purposes, such as flushing the toilets or cleaning the floors. Similarly, if the system detects that there's going to be a drought in the next 2 weeks, it might suggest the household members to be more careful about water usage and maybe use that water for only critical issues. The other side of the story is through top-down approaches. And we're not only interested in knowing how to make governments and researchers use this type of information to build better models, but going beyond that to connecting this information and all of this research with the grassroots organizations that are driving the actual infrastructure change and a lot of the novel technologies. So imagine using this type of information to inform the development of novel rain capturing systems. And so I've been speaking about water and informality, but there's no reason to think not to do this for other issues around cities, such as energy, mobility, food waste, etc. And so if we take a step back, many of these challenges are actually approaching very fast. And the reality is that they're even here with us every single day in many of the cities around the world. So this is why I believe that using technologies or developing technologies in a community-centric way, engaging with local stakeholders, engaging with local experts, can be a very powerful tool to transform and address the challenges that we face. Thanks so much.